good.
Name wrong?
I did. Who am I?
Okay, you can start now anytime. Go ahead.
This is the Ugly Boys Network.
Okay.
Sister network.
Yep. All right. Go ahead.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Operation Limitless. I'm Brett Lechtenberg. This is the show where we focus on how average people ended up achieving incredible triumphs through confidence, grit, determination, and creativity. The goal is to take the commonalities of these incredible human beings and build a model which others can replicate and create a limitless life. And today on the King's Information Network, I have the extreme honor to talk with author and speaker and motivator, Mr. Shawn Wickard. Shawn, thanks for being on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me, Brett. This is awesome.
It's awesome to be here with you today. And I just want to say, right before we filmed or we went live here to do the podcast, Shawn and Brad, I forgot to announce, we got Bad Brad Neufeld here in the house. He's sitting in the back trying to hide out, but don't let him. He might chime in with some questions here. But the three of us went on and did a live video on Facebook, so you can check that out on. I tagged everybody here, so it might be on, should be on Shawn and Brad's pages. But thanks, guys, for doing that. It was a lot of fun. Gave some tips on podcasting. So if you like podcasting, maybe you want to check out those 4 big tips. So anyway, Shawn, I know I'm going to say this wrong, so I'm not going to say it. Would you please tell people why you're here? You're obviously one of the top 1% in the people in the world with your story, with what you've done. But I don't want to misrepresent it here. So go for it.
So the gist is...
Not the gist. I want the whole thing.
Okay. The beginning of the end is I was the first person at the National Institutes of Health to receive a stem cell transplant for lupus. And I was among the first 100 in the world. But I also was paralyzed chest down by a rare spinal disease called transverse myelitis. And I was the 6th one in the world to receive it who also had that condition. So however you look at it, I'm first 100 or the 6th in the world to have this done for what I've had.
And nobody, as I recall, had both lupus and transverse myelitis, correct?
Well, I was the 6th one who had both.
Had both.
Yeah,
okay.
Had this
all right.
Transplant, yes.
Okay. And let's just, before we get to your book, which I want to talk about, and your, I know at least in your mind, the second book's in the works, right? And you've got some documentary footage that's also been shot, correct, about your life?
I've had some. It's kind of fallen apart now, but
it's just on the shelf.
It's on the shelf. If someone would like to help me get it off the shelf, call me.
Fair enough. I think after today, we'll find you somebody that, because I think once they hear your story, it's pretty incredible.
Yes.
So walk me through your journey. And as much as you want to share, I want people to hear just how much you've overcome. Because like the other guests on the show, and some of Sal and Bill and Mark Peterson. So they shared their stories. So hit me, baby.
One more time, really? What led me to the stem cell transplant? I initially became paralyzed first. Literally, I woke up one day and things changed. And you kind of go through life, expecting something, and then the unexpected happens.
Mm-hmm.
And you either show up or you get beat down by whatever shows up at your door. So over the course of about 7 years, I was paralyzed chest down multiple times. I was always in physical therapy, learning to walk, because, well, that's just what you do, right? You get down, get up.
Mm-hmm.
And during that time, my left arm became paralyzed twice. My right arm became paralyzed once. I lost my speech for 2 days. Took about 8 months to get back. I had a lupus-related stroke during that time, and that's when they had confirmed the lupus diagnosis. The spinal disease issue came first. So I had a lot of stuff going on. Had to relearn to walk, relearn to talk, relearn to think. And some people question how well I did those things, especially the thinking part. But,
But it's a work in progress.
Exactly. At least you have a medical issue. You can go back a lot of therapy. I'll give you too bad. But over that 7 years, I was in the hospital like all the time. In fact, about the first 9 years of this issue, I was in the hospital for 3 of them. So I was sick. I died a few times, or almost died, or should have died. It was just one of those touch and go things that no one had answers to, or solutions for.
Mm-hmm.
And it was me questioning, asking, and that's what got me to the NIH, was that annoying 2-year-old way. Why? What? Why not? Why can't I do this? What's going on? And by asking those questions over time, I've ended up finding the answer that ended up really changing the course of my life.
So let's go back just a little bit. How long ago was this?
So I first became sick February 1998.
Okay.
So
So that's when you woke up paralyzed.
I woke up numbness first.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a Sunday. Saturday I worked out. Sunday I woke up with numbness in my feet and shins. By Wednesday I was numb from the chest down and 50% weaker. And by Saturday I was in the hospital because I had trouble breathing.
Wow.
And that's how it started. It literally woke up one day and things changed.
Holy moly. And so you end up in the hospital. And how long were you there the first time?
I was there for just over a week.
And at that point, no diagnosis, or were they able to come up with something? Any way that they helped you, or?
They thought transverse myelitis, but as I recovered over that spring and summer, it hit again in the fall. And once that hit again, it kind of threw it off, because normally if you get it, it's 1 in 1.3 million chance to get, and you are not going to get it a second time. So there I go, screwing up the stats again. You know?
That's you just living outside the box
I
there.
know, right? And so it just continued like that because of how it presented. It kind of threw everybody off.
Mm-hmm.
They thought transverse myelitis, but then as it progressed, they really couldn't confirm what it was.
So let's tell everybody, what is transverse myelitis? What is lupus? So there's a frame of reference to work from here.
Yeah, so lupus is, they're both autoimmune, but lupus is a situation where the body attacks itself, and the symptoms are lupus. So I had sun sensitivity, heat sensitivity, extreme weakness and fatigue. Imagine waking up in the morning like you just ran a 26-mile race every morning. So you have that constant fatigue. Other parts of your body start to break down. I had that lupus-related stroke. They found 36 lesions in my brain.
36. I don't think you've told me that before.
There's a lot of numbers in my history here.
Wow, 36. Yeah. So did they have to go remove those, or did medication shrink those, or?
I don't know. That time period is shady, because I literally was found on the floor of my room in my house, semi-comatose.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's a little shady still, but essentially I recovered. I was in the hospital, gosh, I don't know how long, to be honest. A week or 2 or 3, maybe 4. I really don't know. But I remember when I did wake up, my doctor kind of was a little shocked
that you woke up.
That I woke up and I started interacting with him. Yeah, I was kind of a jerk to him, so he knew I was back. Because you can't put me down. It's just not going to happen. And then they found a hole in my heart during that stay, so I ended up having heart surgery on Halloween.
Wow. So yesterday was a big anniversary.
Yes, it was.
What year
was that? 2003.
Wow.
So
16 years.
Yeah. So now they fixed my broken heart. I'm still single, though. I don't know what they fixed there. But,
your story's breaking my heart.
So. I know, right? So there was like a time period where things really were touch and go. I should have died from that experience. I was expected to die. Apparently, the doctors told someone that was there that if I survived the night, he expected me to die that night. If I survived, I would be a vegetable the rest of my life.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you've kind of explained lupus. What is transverse myelitis?
So that is basically an inflammation in my spinal cord. So demyelinating, basically the picture wires in your house, and they're covered in plastic to allow the signals to go without causing other problems. That was demyelinating, so that plastic sheeting on the nerve endings was deteriorating, so the signals were either going nowhere or somewhere different.
Okay. And so that primarily what caused the paralysis?
Yeah.
Then? Okay. So your brain just couldn't talk to your limbs, the other parts of your body, because the signals were just being distributed everywhere. There's no
Exactly.
focus.
Great way
Okay.
to put it, yes.
Okay. I understand, sort of.
Yeah. Things were kittywampus.
Yes, I think that's the technical term. I've seen that in the medical journals, I'm
Yeah.
pretty
I
sure.
think it's in my file.
So, how did you end up at the National Institute of Health? Why did they choose you? Because it's a selection process, correct? And there's from all over the
Is
country,
all over the world.
all over the world.
They treat all the rare of the rares. And so it turns out some 3 years ago, I met a girl rollerblading here. And it turns out we grew up in the same place in Seattle, knew the same people, but had never met.
Mm-hmm.
She was here going to the University of Utah Medical School to be a doctor, in which she is now, actually. And so after the stroke and after a long time, and I can finally remember my passwords to get in my computer, I emailed her and said, oh, hey, this is what's up. And she emailed me the next day saying, hey, I didn't know you had lupus. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's a new thing. I had a new diagnosis every month for years. So
Wow.
to me, it was just like, well, this is what they think now. I emailed her back that, and the next day she emailed me back saying, oh, hey, I'm at the NIH, and I talked to rheumatology. They said, send your records, and they can't promise to see you, but they'll at least look at your stuff. So I spent the next 2.5, 3 months sending all my records to them. And then one day I get a call from a heavily accented voice saying, basically, do you want to come out? And I'm like, freak me out, come out tomorrow. Just say when.
Right.
And it was funny because I just came from a lunch with a friend who said, hey, look, if you need to fly anywhere, I got extra tickets. You don't worry about it. So I called him back up after he dropped me off. And I said, hey, is that still good about the ticket? And he goes, wait, what? I'm like, no, serious, is it still good? And he goes, yeah. I go, all right, because I just got a call from the NIH. I need to go to DC.
Wow.
So it's just this weird confluence of events and people that allowed me to go where I needed to go to get some answers.
So what year did you head out to the NIH?
I flew out on Janet Jackson Sunday.
Super Bowl Sunday?
Super Bowl Sunday.
Okay. I was like, wait a minute,
There
Janet
are some
Jackson.
things you don't need to see in life, and I'm privileged to say thank you. I didn't have to see that. So that's how I know when that was.
It was an equipment malfunction, sir.
Yes, whatever you want to call it. I didn't have to see it. Thank you. So that's the Sunday.
Yeah,
I
that's
flew
where the
out.
term wardrobe malfunction came from. So
Right.
that's the history of that.
So I'm glad I didn't catch on to that, but that's the day I flew out, was Sunday. I met the doctors Monday, and literally Wednesday night at 6 p.m. I had 3 doctors in my room telling me, we think you have lupus and transverse myelitis. And one was an Indian from India, one was from Arkansas, and one was Hungarian. So imagine the accents.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it took a few minutes to understand what they're all saying, but it was awesome because they said, here's what you got.
So that's the first time you really knew for sure you got something solid.
Something solid and a place to start from to go forward on.
Okay. So let's recount your journey a little bit. From that point, you get a firm diagnosis. You're now out at the National Institute of Health. How did it come about that a stem cell transplant was going to be the thing, and that's where we needed to go and start you on your journey? Kind of recount from there.
Yeah, so I was out there that Wednesday I got that diagnosis, and my question was, what do we do to treat it? And they're like, well, we recommend 6 months of chemo and blah blah blah. And I'm like, okay, so do we start here? Do we start at home? And they're like, we can do it here. I'm like, good, because it'll take my doctors at least a month to pull their heads out of the backside. So let's just get going. So they have to say yes when I get home.
Right.
That was my thought. Let's just get this moving. So I ended up staying another week out there, and then I did the 6 months of chemotherapy. And a lot of people may question why they do chemotherapy for an autoimmune disease. Doctors consider that the ultimate immunosuppressant. So they think with autoimmune that they can suppress the immune system to lessen the symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
That was their thought. So I did 6 months. 3 months after that, my right side went paralyzed. And then I called up my doc at the NIH and said, "Hey, what do we do now? This is crazy. I thought this was supposed to help." And he's like, "Well, come on out. Let's screen you for the stem cell."
Mm-hmm.
Because when I was out there in February, they gave me this big sheet study, a 20-page paper on what the study was about, what they're aiming to do, their goals. And they had warned me that was a potential option. And now
getting a stem cell transplant.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was the next step. So for me to qualify for that, I needed to go through the 6 months of chemo so that I did all the potential treatment possibilities before the stem cell was an option.
Mm-hmm.
So we exhausted that option. When I called him up in October, he's like, "Yeah, why don't you come out on Friday? Let's figure it out." So again, a friend of mine stepped in, gave me a ticket. I went out, and by the end of the week, I was in the study. It was that awesome, that quick. And
how many people in this study?
so I was there first.
Okay, so at that point, you were the study.
I was the study.
Okay, fair.
I was the focus. I was the cool kid on the block.
As always. I'm just going to say, as always.
And at least some of the best doctors in the world now know this about me. So
that you're the cool kid on the block?
I am the cool kid on the block.
All right. There's no disputing that now.
No,
it's verifiable.
Yeah, let's have a dance off if you have problems with that. So I ended up in a small room about half the size of the studio with 4, 5, 8 people signing my life over to the U.S. government because it's funded by the U.S. government, the National Institutes of Health. So if you have qualms about the U.S. government, do not follow my footsteps. I'm just saying you have to sign over your body. And as soon as that happens, they get to work.
So you can't get married now because you don't have rights to your own stuff.
Apparently, I have a lot of issues going on. Yeah.
All right, let's move back forward.
Therapy.
Maybe Brad can help with that. I don't know.
Yeah, so basically from that point on, it's a big blur because they were converting 200 pages of their study into 20 pages for me to understand. And just imagine all the steps and processes that had happened for me to go along this path. There's scans, blood work like there's no tomorrow, proddings, interviews with doctors. I mean, constantly day to day, you are just sun up, sun down, talking with a bunch of people in white coats, scans, being poked, being prodded. I mean, if you have problems with that, do not follow my footsteps. And it's, it's its own form of PTSD going through this kind of stuff, I've had close to 4 dozen MRIs, so I do have the magnetic personality. Now you know why.
Yes, there you go. You've officially been magnetized.
Exactly. One of the scans was a PET scan. And it's funny because...
Did you have any pets at the time?
No.
Okay.
No, there's no petting involved. So you're in a room. There's 2 guys that walk in with hazmat suits, and they were purple. So think of Barney and all the scarring that he did for kids growing up, right? So there's 2 guys in hazmat suits giving you radioactive dye of some kind, injecting it into your veins in a literally a lead syringe.
Nice.
Ouch.
And like, so it's safe for me, but not for you? Come on, kids.
Did you get to keep one of those syringes?
I wish.
Yeah, no
It's
kidding.
probably radioactive, and I wouldn't get on, the fly at TSA would probably snag me or something. You never know. So yeah, it was a lot of that stuff. A really wearing out and tiring process. One of them was being able to pull the stem cells from me. So my stem cell transplant was autologous. My own stem cells were used. So what they did was give me HGH, human growth hormone, for a while to get the bone marrow to produce stem cells faster and release them into the blood faster. And from there, they injected me, or basically pulled all the blood out over the course of 2 days, told me they got 9 million cells. I'm like, great. Is that good? Is it bad? What does that mean?
Sure. Yeah.
Oh, no, that's good. That's good. All right. Cool.
So they got 9 million of your own stem cells from basically processing all the blood that was in your body over 2 days.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right. Yeah. And that was a nice little experience, but it was all in the cure of medical science. And eventually, they gave me 5 days of 3 different types of chemotherapy. And then the following week, they injected those stem cells back into me.
Hmm.
And on January 4th, 2005, that's my new birthday, I literally watched the stem cells drip from the IV bag into the tube connected to my body.
Fascinating. Now, what did they do with the stem cells when they took them out of your body? Any idea?
As far as I understand, they purified them a little bit in the
Okay.
lab. So everything that I saw in that IV bag was my stem cells. It was a salmon colored liquid, and it began dripping, and I fell asleep.
Well, it's not much fun probably just watching something drip. It's like watching paint dry or something else. So.
Oh, and then the previous week you had all that chemo, and so you're just wasted. You can't even lift your head off the table or the pillow. It's brutal. It's just the most aggravating, tiresome, exhausting situation to be in. It's that one moment that's going to change my life.
Wow.
Well, it went on without you, so that's a good thing.
It did. I'm glad the music kept playing.
Well, let's do this. We're going to take a short break, okay? And then we're going to come back. We're going to talk more about your book. We're going to talk more about the journey, and then we'll maybe Brad has a question. We're going to keep going. All right. So take a quick break. We'll be right back with Shawn Wickard.
Okay.
I don't know if you wanted to drink, or the bathroom, or anything.
Oh no, working on bathroom.
Okay. Yeah, I had that same thing, the hole in the heart. So
PFO?
mine ended up being an ASD.
Is that just a different place that the hole is?
It's the upper chamber. And
Okay.
so my doctor was like, you shouldn't be alive right now. Because that whole upper chamber, there was no wall in between the two. So basically my blood wasn't being filtered properly. And so I was getting bad blood up in my head. so anyway, because I got a brain abscess, so they had to cut the back of my head open. And so, but then they found out later that's where the disease came from, was that hole in my heart.
So it started there, caused the problems up there.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, because I know with PFO, that's where a lot of women, when they're pregnant, find out because they get a stroke.
Stroke, yeah.
Like, holy cow.
Yeah. Well, yeah, my wife, where the whole thing first started, my wife's sister had a heart attack. They operated on her and said, you've got a hole in your heart. That's genetic. You might want to tell your siblings. And so we went to the doctor because when I was in the hospital, they never could figure out how the infection got up in my head. And so I left the hospital with like, well, Brad, this may come back because we don't know how it got up there. Well, we're in the doctor with her, and I just had a feeling of tell the doctor, at that time. And I told him, and he goes, did they ever find out how it got up in there? I said, no. He goes, you've got a hole in your heart, guaranteed. And so they did a little test, and sure enough. Yeah. And he was like, you shouldn't be walking right. I mean, you should not be here. He nice. Says, he says, do you smoke or drink? I said, no. He goes, that's the only reason you're alive.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was like, whoa.
I had the stroke. So when the cardiologist lady came in, I mean, obviously I'm not quite together.
Yeah.
And she's trying to convince me I have a hole in my heart.
Yeah.
I'm like, lady, I just won a marathon last month.
Yeah.
Like I raised hand cycles.
I've done 7 of them.
Right? Yeah. And
prior to the.
And so I'm like, because I ran track cross country. I mean, I've always been active.
Right.
And so when she said that, I didn't believe the single thing she said.
Right.
I don't believe you,
Yeah.
And it took convincing, but then, ended up having it. It was weird experience to be sure.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay. So
crazy.
We're ready. 3, 2.
And we're back with Shawn Wickard, the author of Impossible, or So They Said, and person who has overcome being paralyzed, being given his own stem cells, overcome lupus, been officially cured of lupus, officially cleared of transverse myelitis, cured?
More or less.
Yeah, okay. So, Shawn, let's kind of resume where we left off before the break a little bit. So you got the diagnosis, you had your stem cells taken out, replaced, and then the road to recovery. was not like a smooth trail, was not a clear path. And
Yeah.
honestly, from knowing your story, I think the vast majority of people would have given up. In fact, I think you had someone who was in a similar state that you are. You walked, and they still have not. 15 years later, correct?
Right.
So kind of give us the path, and obviously you don't have to give this person's names. I don't want to embarrass anybody, but tell the story because I think it's very empowering.
It is. It's an interesting sidelight. So after the stem cell transplant, well, let's back up to that day when I spent signing my body over to the U.S. government. That night, so oncology floor, there's this little cubby hole with phone, so you can call family and all that.
Mm-hmm.
I literally spent 3 hours calling every number I had memorized. I was excited because I was going to walk again. I didn't give it blank that it was for lupus.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't care less about lupus. All I heard is I was going to walk again, and this was my answer. So fast forward to the procedure. Within about 10 days, I actually felt energy or the lack of fatigue for the first time in 7 years.
Wow.
And I knew right then, this crap is working. Right then. And I got even more excited.
So that was a defining moment for you.
Very much so.
Yeah. And everybody, I like to find their defining moment. So that was one for you right there. You could feel it literally on that day.
Felt it. I knew that this stuff was working and I'm going to get walking. That's pure what it was.
Mm-hmm.
I got home and I made an appointment with the physical therapist. He's like, okay, what's your goal? I said, walking. And he's writing this down. And then I get this sudden thought, oh yeah, and if you don't kick my arse, I'm going to kick yours. And he dropped the pen and looked at me all shocked. And I went, I'm just telling you where the line is, buddy. There's nothing in between me and walking. So you do your job, I'll show up.
Nice.
And if he's on my page, then everything's going to happen. If he's not, I'll find someone who is.
Right.
Luckily, he stuck with me. And his name's Jason and another physical therapist, Stephanie. Over the course of the next 18 months, twice a week, we worked out for an hour and a half, 2 hours. And
Mm-hmm.
I got to the point able to walk about 300 feet with 2 canes. And so that's how it started.
Mm.
You know, you gather the people around you that can do what you need done.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and if all your requirement is to be a participant, show up and you do what you need to do. And that's how it started.
That's awesome. So you were paralyzed for how long at that point? 7 years?
7 years.
7 years being paralyzed. That's just amazing. Now, you had somebody else that had similar circumstances.
Yeah. So she was the second person in the study at the time, and still 20, however many years later, she's the only one I've actually met that has what I have.
Mm-hmm.
She's a young gal out of New Hampshire. Met her and her family. They were in my old room, so we all became friends. And I remember talking with her once, and she's in bed playing on the computer, and her mom's like, Linda, you listen to this man? You need to listen to this man. He's got some, you put that computer down. You listen to this guy. And I wish I could have recorded it because it sounded just like that. It was hilarious. Because the mom caught on, that she wasn't really paying attention. Real nice gal, though. We became friends. She never got to walking again. And over time, even after seeing me over time, being able to stand, being able to walk. In fact, the last time I saw her, they scheduled our visits together so that we could meet up and catch up. And so she asked me, how's the walking? And I like to show off. I don't like to rub it in. And I felt conscious about that around her. So I stood up, took a few steps. I'm like, I can walk a little bit, take a few steps. And she's like, puts her head down. And she goes, maybe I should try. That was 5 years after the stem cell transplant. 5 years of seeing me at 24 appointments. 5 years of opportunity that was never taken.
Mm-hmm.
It's the saddest thing I've ever heard. I'll be honest.
And you and I have talked about in Operation Limitless, we call the confidence model, the personal confidence model. First part being starting off with positive self-talk. From your perspective, to me, that's the thing that you always started with. So I'm gonna walk again. I told my therapist I'm gonna walk again. The doctors, I called people on the phone, told them so the positive self-talk thing, step one, was working hard for you.
Yes.
Did you ever hear her talk about walking again?
No. I don't think she had that mindset, opportunity. I don't think she could see, even though she saw me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think she could see her ever doing it.
Right. And as you know, as we've talked about before, there's the other steps of the confidence model of determining exactly the steps you have control over. And you took total control,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's like, I'm going to physical therapy. I'm getting, at all different stages, I'm going to get stem cell transplant. I'm going to do whatever it takes that I've got control over. If that causes me to have to go get a ticket from somebody else, right, I'm going to take that thing that was offered, right?
Right.
So you kind of exemplified all four of the steps of what it took to do that. And her, on the other hand, didn't really even get to step one.
Didn't even catch on to any part of that. And it's sad because I got in an argument with the doctor that first got me into the study, the heavily accented voice. He's from Hungary and great guy. We ended up getting along quite well. And along the way, I brought it up somehow when we were having a checkup, and I kind of asked about her and the potential to walk or something, and he goes, "Well, we deemed her complete." And I went, "What do you mean you deemed her complete? Like she couldn't recover?" He goes, "No, that's what we figured." And I went, "You're the problem. You blocked her from ever thinking of an opportunity like I had, because I had just as much option to do this as she did."
Mm-hmm.
And you told her no, whether by not saying yes. And it was an interesting conversation because this guy's a world famous doctor. And here I am scolding him, and he kind of looked down and goes, "Perhaps you're right." I go, "I am right. You are the front line to the patients. You give them hope or you give them nope." And you give her nope.
Mm-hmm.
And so I hope now that he has changed and is able to give his patients hope from there on out, because whether there is or not, hope is the best medicine ever. People have accomplished more on hope than any pharmaceutical drug that's come down the pipeline.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're the front line and being able to help people, steer people, project people onto a path of that hope, I think nothing can stand in your way.
Yeah.
And I think you do a great job of transmitting that through your talks, right? Shawn has come out to my martial arts school and spoken at a black belt test. Was guest on one of the black belt panels, as I recall, and you came out to Operation Limitless event as well. We kind of was first putting some ideas together, and you've always had a great message of hope and overcoming and being confident. So let me ask you this: where do you think your confidence comes from? Why do you have that? Because besides this, and we'll leave this for another podcast, you have a pretty incredible story of some things that happened to you in your past besides this lupus thing, because that wasn't just big enough. It transferred. You had to like go all in prior. But
Yes.
so if anybody had the opportunity to have been broken down and not have confidence, it would be you. So that's a teaser for the next time Shawn comes back, because his story is amazing. His other story is equally as amazing.
It's the untold story of
yes.
my backstory.
So where does your confidence come from?
I've been pondering that question since you sent those questions the other day, and it's a hard answer, because part of it is a belief in a higher power. Part of it is nobody tells me what to do. I don't care if it's a disease, a doctor, a person in my life. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it with or without your support. And growing up, like you referenced, in a situation where I did not have support, in fact, literally try to be destroyed, that puts together the fight or flight model, right? You either run, or you stand up and say, that ain't happening anymore. And I created that type of attitude. People see it as attitude. Some people see it as a bad attitude, but to me, attitude is attitude. When, like in high school, I ran cross country and track. I ran a 2-mile. Distances were my thing. And I created the fear of the man behind me as I ran these races. Oftentimes there was no one behind me, but I would create the man behind me to propel me to go faster, to encourage me to go faster, to provide the impetus that, hey, I have to go hard, I have to go fast, I have to give it my all. And it kind of started there. And so when I wanted to get an answer to what was causing the illnesses, I asked those annoying 2-year-old questions: why, what, where, what's going on? And then when I had the stem cell transplant, it was, okay, I'm going to walk again. And that confidence, it creates, it's resilience, right? Resilience is 3 things. It's what you are before anything happens, while anything happens, and after anything happens. It's a complete mindset of, I'm prepared for something to happen, I'm prepared while it's happening, and this is what I'm going to do afterwards. And so by creating those foundations, you are prepared for what comes. And in this case, blood, sweat, and tears. Let's be honest. To go from paralyzed to walking again, you don't wake up cured. You wake up with options. And it's your choice what you're willing to do to take the options available. And what I wanted to do was walk, and I didn't care how y'all felt about it. And I put my all into it.
Sure.
That was my confidence,
And I think you hit on a couple things there that I won't go too deep on, but everybody that has sat in that chair that we've talked to, Mark, Bill, Sal, all these guys, they all said essentially the exact same thing. When push came to shove, I would not be denied, because essentially I knew if somebody else could do it, I could do it. And even if it meant I had to go first, then I would be the first.
Yeah.
Right. And
you think you're cool because you're the first, because let's face it, I'm number one.
That's right, baby.
I don't care how you feel about it. It's in the paper. It's in medical journal now, so I'm awesome.
And you're humble. You're so humble. That's the part I like the best.
Exactly. But you realize that, in the beginning, you just want it done for you. And over time, it's become, I want other people to have this opportunity too.
Absolutely.
And so it becomes a selfish thing, because I want to be healed, and then you do finally get to the point, it's like, you know what, this has worked so well for me. We need more people to have this opportunity.
Yep.
And of hope. And that's all anything is in this world, is stem cell medicine. It's hope. Hope of a better tomorrow, hope of a recovery, hope of something different than what you got now. And that's what's important about, I think, my message is the things I've overcome, I've been able to overcome because of some great opportunities, obviously, but because of the effort prior to that opportunity that we all do every day. It's like last year, I gave a TED talk. It was an awesome opportunity. And the topic was, your dreams don't work unless you do. And I'm like, oh, sign me up. Like, I am the epitome of that topic. And luckily I was chosen, was able to give my speech. And in it, I talked further, it's not in the book, unfortunately, but it will be in the next one, is media. So it's mindset, excuses, discipline, inspiration, action. If you don't have, you're doing those every single day. So imagine doing that on purpose. With intention, exactly. And that's how you're getting through your stuff right now. So because I think, we frame adversity. I've had extreme adversity, obviously, but we think that mine is greater than yours because I have a cool story attached to it. When you're going through your own level of adversity, that's equivalent to me.
Right.
it's all personal. It's not comparable. As cool as my story is, it's not comparable to your story or to Bob's story. We all
or Brad.
or Brad, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. The B-man.
Yeah, I get called all kinds of things.
Just don't call him late for dinner.
Exactly. But we add the emotion to make it more difficult or less difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And all adversity can be less difficult by lessening the attachment to it.
Yep, absolutely. We were just talking about that before you got here, because we're doing a seminar together along with Bill Schiffenauer on reducing anxiety and helping kids and adults with that kind of stuff. So yeah, we're with you, man.
It's on the same way, right? We add or take away. And so if you take away the big factor when adversity hits you, then you take it to a manageable place where you're like, okay, how do I do this? So that's your mindset, right? What am I going to do about this? Do you have control over it or you don't? If you don't, nothing you can do but how to handle it.
Mm-hmm.
What's your excuse? Start going through your excuses, work those out, and get over them, really, because that's all they are. It's just wine and dine. Let's get you off this path of awesomeness and put you into the place where everybody else is.
Mm-hmm.
Discipline. What are you going to do about it? How are you going to do it? And then how often? What's the input that you have into it? And then inspiration, because a lot of times when we're going through our stuff, we're not necessarily inspiring ourselves, but we need to be inspired. So find someone out in the world, in your life, someone you look up to. Could be a speaker, could be an athlete, could be, whatever, and grab onto what they're saying, get inspired, and then get to work.
Right.
Nothing happens, no change happens without work.
Create an intention, build the architecture. These are things that we talk about in one of the groups I'm in, the TMIC. It's called The Most Important Conversation. It's pretty cool. I'm going to introduce you to those folks. So yeah, that's awesome. Before we take the next break, I just want your opinion on what you see of the generation today, as far as resiliency, confidence, grit, as compared to the generation of like you and I. I know you're a little bit younger than I am.
So and Shawn, could you stay an extra hour afterwards? I really want to explore this.
So are we editing swears? Oh my gosh, that is a loaded question. It's two things. You have kids, let's go teenagers to 20s, that are growing up with a good foundation and that they will be the leaders of tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
There's always that in every generation. Unfortunately, the part of that generation that gets the attention are those that have no context. They don't understand history. They don't understand the work part. Perhaps they haven't been taught it. Perhaps they just haven't learned it. But nothing happens without work. And whether it's working on your school, working on a career, working on passion, working on something that can be constructive.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a disconnect with the vast amount of that generation we're referencing on those areas. And with perspective, we've all had it in our generations where you realize that everybody puts some work into whatever they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Track and cross country, you have to go stretch, you have to go run, you have to go prep. You have to go learn your skill. And if you're not putting any effort into those areas, or you think something should be handed to you, you're not learning the pivotal life lessons that make a difference in all of our lives, whatever the generation is.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think there's too many in that current generation who are missing those teaching moments.
Agreed.
Very true. Very true. Well, with that moment of inspiration for all of us, we are going to take a quick break, and then we will be back with Shawn Wickard, and we'll talk a little bit about what you've got coming up and things that how people can find you and all that kind of good stuff. All right. I don't know how much time we got left. That's why
only about 7 minutes max. Left. But,
okay.
But again, as always, the podcast can go however long. It's just the commercials I have to adjust out, but it's all good. No,
So,
that's wow, Shawn. Oh yeah, I was sitting there going, can I have you back on my show and we can talk about that, because millennials are driving me freaking nuts right now.
I work with a bunch. And I'm just like, you guys they're distracted.
Yeah.
They're just distracted.
I gotta say, I see that side of the millennials, but you've been to my school. Both my businesses are run by millennials, and I really wouldn't have it any other way.
Okay.
Because you're the side that I was referencing too, right? like you have those people that
we train them.
Yeah.
My philosophy is that our generation's made a big mistake in that we told these guys, these gals, these kids, you can train the world, or you can change the world. You can change the world. But then we never gave them the actual tools, the framework to change the world. Right. And so when they go try their different things, it just seems very scattered. It's very unfocused. And they don't know what they're doing. They're flailing.
Yeah.
But if you give them the groundwork and you train them and explain why the training is important, they get it.
Yeah.
They get it.
The point, so they have a different perspective.
And that to me is what's not happening. So like I said, I see the millennials and that those generations are screwing up, but I look back at it and I think it's a training issue.
Yeah.
We let them down. The ones that are motivated, the ones that will dig deep, the ones that will find it, they become the Bill Gateses, right? But just very few Bill Gateses. But there's a whole lot of John Smiths that they get beaten down, they forget, they give up, right? Anxiety grows, drug use grows, obesity grows, because they can't figure out how to change. And nobody told them it takes the work.
Right.
It takes the grit. It takes the fortitude. They've got to lay the foundation. They were just told, you can do it. It's going to be easy. You've got unlimited possibilities.
No matter what, you'll win an award anyway.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. We polluted them with those
6 years old. I think that's great. But after that, life is competition.
Period.
No.
It doesn't matter.
There's no circumventing it. That's what it is.
It is. And if you missed that lesson, you missed a lot.
Yep.
So I'm going to hit you with just a few kind of questions I like to end with, and then I want you to tell everybody how they can reach out to you and get your book.
Yeah, tell them about your book and everything for sure.
Stuff. So okay.
All right. Here we go. 3, 2.
And we're back with author of Impossible, or So They Said, by Shawn Wickard, a motivational speaker and just all around maverick. I'm Goose, he's Maverick. That's just the way it's going to be from now on.
I've got the
need for speed, baby. Shawn, I'm going to hit you with a few questions I like to ask everybody, and then I want you to tell everybody how to get a hold of you, how they can get into your world in some way and be inspired by you. Tell me, how would you define self-confidence?
Self-confidence. That is a tough one. Self-confidence is self-awareness. Awareness of maybe not so much how to do, but that you can do. That you're just, it's that place where none of the voices in your head are. It's that quiet spot that we all have, where we're sure of something, we're sure of our capabilities, we're sure of our future. Underneath all the voices that we all have to contend with every day, it's that quiet spot. And that's the part we have to tap into probably more often than we do.
And I think that's a great way to say it. We got to tap into it. Yeah, absolutely. So what would your message be to someone who needs a boost of self-confidence, some inspiration, some motivation?
You can do it.
All right. Fair enough.
Well, if I can chirp in here, because I get people that ask me this all the time. Because when you found out that, all right, all of this stuff is happening to you, was there ever a time where you were feeling like there was, even if it was for a minuscule second there, that you felt hopeless, that, oh my gosh, I'm done? Hundreds of times. So what did you do to then turn that on and go, all right, I can't stay here. I've got to do something else. I've got to get past this. I mean, what was the thought process that turned you to this new, or the way you are now?
It goes back to what I said earlier, where I felt a higher power was involved that gave me a message that I will overcome everything. And whenever it was down, and there was dozens and dozens and dozens of times when you're down, that quiet space spoke, and it just said, remember, you're going to overcome it all. And it's like, oh yeah, okay, never mind, back to that page. You flip the page and you get that mindset back, and you're like, okay, never mind, I'm going to quit whining, quit sulking, and it's time to suck it up and get to work.
Nice.
Yeah, and I want to chime in. I think it boils down to what has been your previous programming, right? If you've been filled with negativity, if you've been filled with you can't do it, you've been told push down, beat down, and you bought into it, then that's the only thing that voice is telling you. Oh, you can't do it. But something in you told yourself you're going to do. You told yourself so many times, and you even went out making phone calls and did other things to tell yourself you were going to do it. When push came to shove, when the quiet came, and when you were there to make the final option, what you told yourself is what came to the top. That's my thought.
Yeah, and that came from that quiet space too. That inner place that no one touches, that just says, you know what, you're going to be all right. You know what you need to do. You prepare for the pain, you prepare for the work internally, so that whatever it is you have to do is just like a part of the process. It's not work at that point.
Right.
It's a part of the process. And if you can change that work word, because work is a 4-letter word, no matter how you feel about it, right? Whether you're 8 to 5 or an entrepreneur or whatever, work is rough and it's a 4-letter word. But if it's the process, it changes the mindset. And so my mindset was that this was not work. This was the process to get me walking again.
And I think that's awesome.
Perfect.
And it quieted those ugly voices enough to say, shut up, guys. I'm going to be doing this, and this is how I'm doing it. So you circumvent that programming.
Yeah, and we talked about this with Mark Peterson. We talked about grit, right? Being willing with Sal. I think you've noticed with everybody. I don't know if you listen to their podcast or not, but everybody said the same. You got to give yourself permission. Sal was very big on you got to give yourself permission to feel the pain, right? Because that will. I forget who said it, but pain makes cowards of us all. Or fear makes cowards of.
Fear definitely makes cowards of us all.
So. Everybody that we talk to, same kind of thing. It's part of the model, right? That we're building here is, and I think you said it right. You've got to realize it's a process. It's simple, but it's not easy, right? And I really struggle with people just continue to say, "Well, it'll be easy. You can do it." Well, don't keep telling yourself it's easy. Tell yourself it's possible. Tell yourself you can do it. Rely that the fact there is a process, and you have to create that process many times, and then things truly can come to you.
Well, and two, so I'm faced with the adversity of I can learn to walk again. So if you look at the whole thing, that's going to squash you. That is heavy thought. That is going to keep you down. All you have to worry about is I have my next appointment with the physical therapist on Tuesday. That is all you worry about.
One step.
Tuesday, and then I worry about Thursday, and then I worry about the next Tuesday. That is, you worry about each step as you need to. Because if you get too overwhelmed, you won't even take that first step. So allow yourself to break it down and stop thinking about the 900 other things you had to worry about.
Nice.
Yeah, when the way you said that made me think of the movie Apollo 13, right? And one astronaut's kind of like, we've got this problem and we're not going to be able to re-enter the atmosphere because of X. And Tom Hanks goes, that's like step 900 and whatever, and we're on like step 9, right? Let's just do this step 9 or whatever the numbers were. But it's the same kind of thing. And whenever I see that, I go, yep.
Well, there's another line in that movie. He's like, work through the problem, people.
Yep.
And it's just work through the problem that's at hand. Because you can get squashed by the overwhelming effort that you might have to put into something. And the only way to start is to just stop thinking about it, because you already know what you're going to do. You just got to put the worry on that first step and then take it from there.
Yep. So let's move from there. What's your favorite motivational quote, or do you have one?
So I have two. I was thinking about this.
You can share them both.
One is one that I've known about for 30 years, and I think it's the most awesome quote. A lot of people think it's negative, but let me explain afterwards why not, why it's not. Lick the lollipop of mediocrity once, and you suck forever. That is a great quotation because you can tell where you're at that moment that you think about whatever you're worried about. And it's not a negative thing. It's I think a great locational type quotation. Like, where am I at? Am I not giving enough? And where am I not giving enough? I think it's a great situational quotation. So it's a good standard to say, where am I at? But the one I came up with for my TED Talk is, impossible is somebody else's opinion. I'm possible is my opinion. The opinion that I believe will become the reality that I achieve.
That's awesome. Say that again.
Impossible is my opinion. Sorry. Impossible is somebody else's opinion. I'm possible is my opinion. The opinion that I believe will become the reality that I achieve.
Perfect.
Love it.
Shawn, tell people, I know how to get a hold of you. Tell the people who are listening to this, come across this, whatever, how they can come into your world. How do they find your book? Where can they find you online, social media, whatever, how you'd like them to come to you?
So my book is on Amazon. It's called Impossible, or So They Said. I have electronic and I have a print book there. I am on Facebook, Shawn Craig Wickard. I have a author page attached to that as well. You can look my name up on Google. I have a TED Talk that's online right now, and just type in Shawn Wickard TEDx Riverton, and that'll pull that up.
Okay.
Other than that, call me. Or my website, which is gotstemcells.info.
Say that again.
Gotstemcells.info.
It's on his shirt there in case people on YouTube so you can see that.
Yes, I'm not walking advertisement.
Of just awesomeness.
Yes. And I have a contact page there if you'd like to know more, if you'd like me to share my story, speak. My TED Talk is on there as well. But yeah, I'm there. I'm available.
Awesome. Well, Brad, any other questions from you today, sir?
No, sir. No, this is great. Like I say, I'd love to explore some of this other stuff that you said.
Yeah,
Let's get him back on here.
I figured you guys would like the connection to each other. And
you bet.
And as Shawn gets ready with his next round of overcoming impossibilities, we'll have him back again for sure. So that's it for today with another episode of Operation Limitless. Shawn, thanks for being here. We appreciate you.
Yeah,
and Brad, thank you
Shawn.
for being here as well. And until next time, have a limitless day.
Boom. Okay. That was awesome.
Did we make time?
Yep, we're good.
Perfect.
That's great, Shawn. Holy cow.
Oh, yeah.
I tell you, Brad, I'm only trying to introduce you to the coolest.
I know you, and you haven't let me down. I keep thinking, oh, this next one's not going to live up to. Oh man, what the heck?
Oh yeah, and there's more where that came from.
That's awesome.
Oh, I know, it's a strange world.
Well, similarly, I mean, that's how I when they told me they were going to cut the back of my head open, because I had literally no health problems up till I had all of this stuff. It's been 11 years now, and I was like, I got a what? Yeah, I'm supposed to be dead. What? I'm, anyway, all this stuff.
And disconnect.
I was disconnected.
Yeah.
And the anxiety was so high, I finally just had to say, God is in charge. That was all. That was the only thing that would bring me peace. God is in charge, and He's told me I'm gonna do all these wonderful things, and so I have to just trust.
Oh, yeah.
I just had to keep saying that over and over again, right up until they put me out. So
Hold on for that wild roller coaster ride you didn't prepare for.
Right.
So no, it's a crazy. I don't know. It's that faith before action kind of thing, right? It's like, okay, I hope you know what you're doing up there, because at this point, I don't see how this is going to work out.
Yep.
Yep. Well, I mean, I remember like when stem cells got in the news about 2000, 2001.
It was all negative.
Well,
As,
yeah.
as I remember,
Well, yeah,
it's
because they were talking about
genetic
recreating people.
engineering and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like,
But I remember looking at the TV and pointing, going, "That's how I'm gonna get cured."
really?
I did.
That's
I
awesome.
literally sat in my wheelchair and went, "That's my cure."
Mhm.
How would I know? I'd be freaking medical history with it,
Yeah,
5 or 6 years later.
Yeah.
But yeah, I knew it was going to be the way out. But,
You got to put that in your story. You never told me that part before. You didn't come out to.
well, there's
Let's edit this in, Brad.
Well, we can put it on the video. We're still being recorded there. Hi, everybody.
So did you get that?
My story is so huge, it's hard to remember everything you want.
No, I think it was perfect because just have you back. Plus, I have literally been working on this deal, working on this idea of how we're going to have do a speaking thing. We have Bill and Sal and those of us that we've been talking about, and Brad here potentially is too if he's into it. I've never told him about this, but we'll get everybody's speaker reel going and get found a place in Sandy that we can rent for like $75 for the night or something. All professional stuff, right?
Really?
Yeah.
Nice.
And my plan was, for there's about a half dozen people interested. Everybody invite 20 friends.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So everybody's gonna put up their own $10-20. Invite 20 friends. We're all gonna do our thing. We're gonna get it videoed. We're gonna get it edited. Basically, cost nobody really anything.
Right.
Maybe everybody's into it $100 max, but you got a bunch of professional stuff.
Exactly.
Nice.
Oh, wow. That'd be awesome.
So,
Yeah, it's a crazy world.
I'd love it. Start our own TED Talk thing.
Well, seriously.
So here's another thing. I threw this out to Bill, Saul, and Mark. I was just on Sunday. I was sitting. Maybe it was Monday. I was sitting at home. I was watching HBO, and LeBron James has a show called The Shop. Now, I don't watch it. I've never seen it. It's just a bunch of guys that sit around in a barber shop and they talk about. I don't know how they pick the subject, but they obviously pick one, and it's all famous people, right?
Okay.
If I'm recognizing a rapper, they have to be pretty big because I don't know.
Yeah.
Right. So there'll be a half dozen of these sports celebrities, music, whatever. And they're just sitting around talking about issues of the day. And I was like, we got to have a limitless, the man cave limitless cast, right?
Yeah.
And we got to come up with something like that because people seem to have interest. I mean, this is on HBO, and these guys are killing it with this. We just have to have something that's a little bit just us. It's just
Shop talk, my guys.
Well, and what was your little name that we came up with? Who are we? We're the what game?
HBN.
Oh, HBN, the
What's
Homely
that?
Boys Network.
Homely boys. That's awesome.
Well, see, coming up with something like that, I think if you had that and marketed that would draw some attention in. For people.
Yeah.
Even though they don't want to admit it, they'll go in private. That's me. Maybe I ought to listen.
I know, right?
Maybe
Well,
okay.
it's something that bridges the gap without words that says you're included. You're part of the gang.
Yeah.
You're homely too.
Yeah, you're homely too.
You can be as homely as we are.
Yes, we're not on the cover of magazines, but we are what's in the magazine.
Yeah, because a fat motivational speaker, does a lot of good stuff. Yeah.
I know.
And under this keg is a 6-pack, boys. Don't we?
I know. And I was in Paralympic stuff and just trying to get there, but then I was healing. I couldn't bridge both worlds. It was weird mindsets. But it was fun. I mean, just to be in that world a little bit and be around. Like I mentioned at the last time that we're at your place.
With everybody there?
Yeah. With the group. Because being around, growing up in what I grew up in, I mean, I have attitude, but then you have that underlying battle of, positive and really negative. And at that time, going through all that I've been through and post stem cell, here I get to go up to Sun Valley, Breckenridge, and train with the Paralympic coach. Oh, that's my pump. That's my next surgery is getting that sucker out. Sorry.
I was like, somebody coming in?
It's fun in quiet places because you're like, but being around those mindsets because, at the time, I'm full on PTSD. I can say that now. At the time, I had no idea. I was just so foggy from the stem cell, the recovery. I lived in Thailand for 3 months as a coach for wheelchair basketball. My girls got silver at the international games. And then I came back and I was just like all of a sudden in this Paralympic program. I mean, talk about,
Yeah.
you know, just like what the crap's going on. But being around those mindsets, you know, world champions, national champions, Olympic champions, I mean, that is kind of, I think, started feeding that inside a little bit better. And
that's why I've been trying to bring people together, right, to do that.
Yeah.
So I actually need to reach out to everybody this week because I wanted to put another thing together in December before black belt testing. See if we get everybody together on a Friday night. So what I did the first time was, that's how I got people to meet each other or get reacquainted with each other, is I just invited them to our black belt test. And then while the black belts were testing, I just did something fun with it. What did we do? Did we do board breaking or fire breaking?
Fire breaking.
We did fire breaking with everybody.
Okay.
I
I eat fire.
Yeah, he's a fire.
Talk about heartburn.
Yeah, it's a whole new. Yeah, exactly. It's a whole new.
Oh my gosh, can't even imagine that. Like it's tempting to want to try, but then you know the rational side of me says, just I'll let you say it.
Well, and I could teach you. But anyway,
Yeah.
What it is.
Yeah, but it was interesting that whole time period. I think laid a subliminal foundation for me, so that everything else could kind of start percolating together, getting all the pieces glued together. I don't know. Sheesh. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy how much time has gone by too. It's like, man, what does it take to heal?
Yeah.
A lot of freaking time.
And
I'm still going.
Yeah.
Jeez. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I didn't think I'd ever be able to do radio again. Well, I'd lost my sight for a while. I mean, mine's nothing compared to what you've been through. I lost my sight for a while. Thought I was done, you know, and this is it. And then I finally woke up one day and it was like, I could see clear over here, but everything else was a blur. I'm like, okay, this is weird. And so I resumed doing what I was doing, personal coaching sessions and stuff like that. But I'd have my wife take me to the person's house and drop me off. You know, I was like, this is my way of, no, I'm not going to stop doing what I'm doing.
Right.
And then it was like 6 or 7 months later, I woke up one morning and I was like, I can see, what the, it was just, am I dreaming right now? Yeah, that was the weirdest sensation. But anyway, yeah. But anyway, there's me and my glory days.
How long did you fire to get then?
Oh, for doing it for years.
Oh, wow.
Just I haven't done a whole lot of public speaking lately, but I want to get back into it.
Well, you come up to black belt test and do that as well.
Okay.
Inspire the kids.
Yeah, I've trained thousands of people how to do it, and just it's part of a motivational thing.
Wow.
You really trained that many? So I don't think we ever talked about that. I know you did it, but I don't think you ever told
me.
No,
I train people how to do it. Yeah.
So what does it take to train someone? Is it something they do over the course of weeks? Is it something you do in a night?
You have to. I would do it like at phase. When I say phase, like if I do a 3-day workshop, it would be the last day because you've got to do some mental preparation for it first. Yeah, because if you don't do the preparation, then there's what am I doing? You know, it doesn't have the impact. But you build up to that pinnacle, and you tell them that's going to happen on day 3. And of course, the curiosity takes over. Well, I can say no if I have to, but everything's so interesting.
Pressure kicks in.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and it does. And there's a lot of that, and people will tell you that afterwards. I wasn't going to do it until I saw these 30 people do it, and then it was like, now I'm going to do it. And anyway, it's an interesting thing there, but you build up to it, and then the way that you teach it is motion. You know, everything is practice. So practice safely. So we practice with nothing on the end there, you know. All right, get in the mode. You're up here, you see it, visualize it, turn it, it's coming towards your mouth, open your mouth, close it now, you know, get in the mode, get in the motion, in the motion. And then finally we do it. Wow. You're staring at the fire and
best thing we taught you guys fire breaking, right? Just hit that board.
It wasn't the fire, that was a distraction, you know, more than anything. I mean, really, and then but it was that was fun. Plus it was just cold that night, I recall.
Yeah, everybody
that's all I recall is it was cold, and just
because it was December. Was it December last year? Or December 2 years ago?
I think it was last year.
I want to say it was last year too.
I don't know.
1 year anniversary.
Was what anniversary?
1 year.
Oh, 1 year. Oh yeah. Yeah.
of that coming up in December.
Man, a lot has happened this year. Sheesh. It's like nothing's happened and everything's happened. It's kind of like this weird bipolar thing.
Yeah.
I mean, just crazy.
I need to get you. You never got to meet. You haven't got to meet some of the guys yet. Kent Rominger, the astronaut.
Oh yeah, definitely want to meet him.
I gotta. I don't think a good friend of mine is one of the world's best dog trainers here in Salt Lake, Scott Minson. He's an awesome guy. There's a few people I'll probably never get in the studio, like Tom Patiri. He's like the created CDT and created a few other things were self-defense, self-protection programs around the globe. He's done security for everybody on the planet. I know that's big, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Except for the president and stuff, but all the big celebrities, everybody. When Rupert Murdoch got married, I mean, it was Tom's group that did all the security. When 9/11 happened and they had to bring the Concorde back over from France, it was Tom's guys that went over and flew it back. And it was just so. Yeah, I've been interviewing a lot of different people. It's been
That's
fun.
cool.
So
there's some crazy people doing crazy things out there.
Yeah.
You know, like the guy that's climbed all 7 peaks, all the highest on all continents, and then sailed the 7 seas. He's down here in Pleasant Grove.
Wow.
So Eric Johnson, the guy that's next week, it was going to be. He knows it. They're buddies.
Yeah, and a friend of mine who was his neighbor.
So Eric said,
Yeah.
"I'll introduce you to him. I'll make the contact." So I'm just basically waiting for Eric's thing to launch, and then it's okay. Would you introduce me to this guy? Because he's got. I guess he's basically a recluse now.
Yeah, that makes sense.
He just doesn't. He just doesn't do much. But Eric says that he knows him personally, and he'll respond to him and stuff. He can't guarantee he'll do the interview, but I told him, I said, I'll go to him. I'll meet him somewhere. He can come here. Whatever he wants. I want to talk to him.
Devin interviewed him a few years ago, and pretty interesting stuff he said.
Yeah.
Well, it kind of sparked stuff in me, like, you know, with how he relates what he's done with like corporate speaks, you know, because that's, you know, how do you compare what I've done with, you know, corporate world or business world? But the way he spoke about stuff, I'm like, that's okay. It's kind of I'm using as a foundation actually for some stuff I'm trying to put together. So. Yeah, he seems like an amazing guy. But
so if you let me know when you're trying to get back out and really get the speaking thing going again. I know you've had there's some things I've introduced Bill to. That I kind of got introduced, and I just kind of took him. I said, "Hey, I think we should go do this," and it's leading to a lot of great connections for him, and we can introduce you to the same people.
Yeah, I'm definitely there. Yeah, I don't really have a hiccup, I guess. It's just working on this new medical issue garbage. Yeah, my body doesn't produce 2 antibodies, so I have to get IVIG or immunoglobulin shots. So we're just playing the game with insurance. You know, I was at my doctor's this morning getting something, and they're awesome. So I did the pre-op stuff like 2 weeks ago, and then they keep on telling the office that they need more stuff, but they can't quite describe what they need. So my doctor's office, the lady, she goes, "So I just sent them all 200 pages of your records so they can find it themselves."
Oh gosh.
Way to shove it right back on them.
Yeah.
You can't describe it. Here, you find it.
You find it, right. Oh my gosh.
Because they have to come up with the right dosage.
Yeah.
And I'm like, nobody does math on Friday.
No, well, yeah, exactly.
You know, come on. So they've been putting Vodeg and stuff, so she probably just dumps it in their lap.
Yeah.
Well, we have a team that can read this. Good. Here, you find it.
Yeah.
Like, instead of just saying, "Hey, can you get a blood test for this one, and then we can get the answers?" Something easy.
Yep.
Oh man, that was the best answer ever. Just loved it. Just dumb.
You tell me if that live showed up on your.
So yeah, it'll fill in the gap.
All